let's talk about the Central Division in the NBA. We got the Chicago Bulls, we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Detroit Pistons, the Indiana Pacers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. For this iteration of this show, we're going to have perspectives from the Bulls and the Pistons. Supposed to have a Cavs guy, but maybe he got tied up doing something else. We'll have him here next week. So introduce yourselves, JJ3 and my man Foster. What teams you guys rap?
Chicago Bulls right here. JJ3 in the building representing the Bulls. I wish I was representing a team that was going out threatening winning 70 games or something like that this year, but I'm not. Frustrated life of a Chicago sports fan, but it is what it is.
And it's B. Foster Child, one half Bleachers to Speakers. Oh, let me get on here. And I represent the name of our show is Post Game Podcast in the Pistons.
Well, oh man, I'm a frustrated Chicago sports fan. Not necessarily a Bulls fan. Not a lot of people know that. I see them, but I don't see them. If you know what I mean. I don't think a lot of Bulls fans can see the Bulls as of right now. Is that right, JG3?
That is 100% correct. Since Jerry, in his infinite wisdom, decided to distance himself and completely separate from Comcast's own network and start his own network, he failed to actually get his distribution rights cleared through Comcast, through Xfinity. So if you're an Xfinity customer, you cannot watch the games yet. So you are SOL. You either have to go out and get an antenna, or you have to be someone who has DirecTV. And depending on your proximity to Chicago City, you may struggle even with an antenna to pick those games up with enough really clarity to watch it. So it may not even be worth your time. Maybe you can check it out on the radio. Maybe you can follow along on your ESPN app or something like that. But as far as actually just watching the game without having DirecTV or without having an antenna, you might be popped.
You all don't have no issues like that up there in Detroit, right, Foster?
You know what? They got a whole Bally situation. I got my own avenues of streaming, so I don't worry about that too much. But I do see a lot of people complaining about this and that, and I don't. I'm watching the game right now on my laptop.
Got to be a pirate sometimes.
Right.
Talk about the 2024 version of what we're going to see from these teams. Well, the Pistons did come in last in the Central Division last year. The Bulls, to the chagrin of most of their fans, they made the play-in yet again and then got sent home very early. So let's start with the Pistons. What's your all's outlook for this season? Is you going to have a better showing this season?
It can't get any worse, and I say that, reluctantly, just because I don't want to put myself in that position. But I mean, we lost 22 games, something like that, in a row last year, and we looked pretty good in the preseason, but we have a gauntlet out the gate as far as our schedule. So the first 10 games are going to be pretty tough, but we are going to battle and hopefully get on the board soon, because we are currently 0-3, and we still have a lot of tough teams to play upcoming. So tough to say right now. I don't want to make too many bold predictions, because got to get on the board at this point.
Chicago Bulls, you all went 40 wins last season. Went to the play-in for the second year in a row. You don't have your leading scorer anymore, DeMar DeRozan. So what can anyone expect from the Bulls this season?
Truthfully, what you can expect from the Bulls is more of the same. More of what you got last year, more of what you got the year before that. The Bulls love to reside in a place of mediocrity. The Bulls love to reside in a place of getting anywhere from 40 to 45 wins on the season. Their goal is typically to land themselves in the play-in game, typically to be a team that is going to finish within that 7 to 9 range year in and year out. They prefer to have butts and seats at the United Center. They prefer to have that extra game or two at the end of the season in the play-in than actually be a consistent strong team from start to finish on the season and really threaten and have a high place in their division. So pretty much you can expect the Bulls to probably win about 35 games, 38 games, somewhere in that range. Depending on the strength of the lower half of the conference, they'll see themselves once again in 8th, 9th, or 10th.
I'll take 30 wins. Not to interject my own, but how is Levine looking so far? It looks, the numbers, I haven't seen any games, but the numbers look pretty good anyways.
So as far as Zach, obviously he missed a lot of time last year with the injury. It was obviously a severe injury. He shut it down. He preferred to have season-ending surgery than see himself get traded to Detroit.
Right.
No shade to Detroit, by the way, our cousins from over there. But
right.
Yeah, he much prefer to just shut down his season. But so far this year, he looks like typical Zach, right? He looks like fluid offensively. He can score in bunches. Oftentimes, those points that come in bunches don't impact the game itself, right? He'll go off on the flirt. I literally watched the game that he put on against New Orleans, first game of the season. Second quarter, Zach went bananas. Like, he had like 5 threes in the first half. He was cooking. Looked like he should be an all-star, right? Mm-hmm. Fourth quarter turnaround, Zach was essentially nowhere to be found, right? That production that was there in the first half wasn't there in the second half. That's just kind of what Zach is. Again, he's a very talented player. He's right now leading the Bulls in scoring, I think, at about 24 points a game. He's got the same number of field goal attempts as Kobe White. I think they're both at about 15 attempts a game. So yeah, you're going to get typical Zach. He looks healthy. He looks athletic. He looks explosive. He looks like the same player he's always been. And unfortunately, the same player he's always been is a perennial loser. And he's a talented guy. He's just not a guy who pushes his team towards victories. And that's just always been the problem with him. It's going to be something that follows him wherever he goes until he goes to a team that he can be the second, maybe, but more ideally, third or fourth best player and just sort of slide in and maybe be a contributor on a team like that.
That'd be a nice team if he's in the third or fourth option. That's wild.
Well, hey, maybe the team they playing at night will trade for him or something like that, but I doubt it. Look, I'm hoping the Bulls can trade him. I mean, quite frankly, if we want to have that discussion, I would love for the Bulls to trade him and a few other guys and pick a direction. I mean, truthfully speaking, I'd much rather have the outlook of a Pistons fan at the moment. And again, no disrespect, but you guys are closer to being more so at the bottom. The Bulls are projected to more so be in just the perpetual middle and no man's land. And unfortunately, that's not where you should want to be as an organization at this stage, especially with some of the talent that's projected to come out in the draft next season. So, yeah, man.
At least you have hopes of winning a lottery because we never, doesn't matter. We got Cade, but other than that, they're not letting us get the number one.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second. JJ3, that you want the Bulls to pick a lane. You know the guys that you want to get rid of. You want to get rid of these vets, these big contracts, and just go all out. Poop for Coop is what we're saying on the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan channel. We want to tank and go get that number one guy. But what's going on with that number one guy the Detroit got a couple of years back, Cade? I'm hearing talk like he just ain't it. Is he actually going to be that franchise guy this year?
No, I mean, he's doing really, really good thus far. I think that he's reaping the benefits of more spacing. Right now, he's averaging 27 points and 8 assists. So he's gotten off to a good start. But, yeah, we still haven't won yet. So I guess for what that's worth to have 27 points and 0 wins. So good start to the year. And, the last couple of years, he's dealt with injuries and just not having a lot of support. Like when there's no spacing on the court, they're just collapsing all over him. And so it's a lot for one man to do who has some athletic deficiencies in a sense. So.
Athletic deficiencies is not what you want to hear from your number one draft pick. Ugh.
I mean, he's not explosive. Right. I mean, he's got great fundamentals, good good mid-range game, but I mean, he's been dunking on cats this year, so I can't even say that he's not capable of that. But I don't know. It just sometimes seems a little slow out there, a little methodical.
Before we get into the this season, like the games being played and the games that will be played, two things from last year. One, Detroit Pistons. I think the Bulls and the Pistons, they tied the season series last year.
I believe so.
The Bulls gave Detroit went on a 27 game losing streak, and they only win in that little span was against the Bulls. So there might be a little thing there.
I mean, there's always a little thing between the Bulls.
I know there was. Yeah, you go back and forth giving out free wins. There was a rumor last season that the Pistons were the number one team in the running for the Zach LaVine sweepstakes. Is there any hope the Bulls can get that off on with Detroit? Send LaVine to Detroit.
Man, look, fingers crossed. Honestly, I mean, you may not want to see him as a Pistons fan up there, but as a Bulls fan, fingers crossed. Please take him off our hands. Like, what you want? Like, what'll sweeten the deal for you? You know what I mean? You need some stocks or something like that. What you looking for?
Some draft capital.
I would love to offload him. Yeah, the Bulls need to pick a lane, man. They need to go ahead and wrap him on up. You're not getting draft capital, bro. You're not getting that.
Oh, well, I mean, what's it going to do with Vucevic? Like,
you take him too, for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
They both of them right now. Zach and Vooch, I drive them up there myself.
I'm a big fan I've always been a fan of Zach's game, so I wouldn't be upset. I mean, it would put butts in seats, and it would give somebody to, another scoring threat to go next to Cade Cunningham. So, I think we got enough young guys and lottery, young lottery players. Like, I think it's time that because a lot of, we're not going to get high profile guys to come here. So it's going to happen via trade. So I'm not terribly opposed to it. Obviously he's got his injury woes, but outside of that, we need another guy that can fill it up and score 30 every once in a while.
Well, Zach can definitely do that. I mean, and Vooch is a guy who can typically give you a double-double, but similar to Zach, his stats aren't very impactful at times. And obviously he's very dependent on getting the ball fed to him. So as a big guy, and most big guys are that. But yeah, man, I'll drive him up there right now. Personally, I'll drop him off right there at your facility, and I won't have any qualms about doing it. So please take both those players off our hands, because to me, that's what needs to happen for the Chicago Bulls. Pick a lane.
So who do you want? You want draft capital? Or you want Jaden Ivey or something?
I mean, I'll take him.
I'm sure you will. I mean, he's having a good year so far. So
I'll take him. Run that.
Midwest guy.
Beggars can't be choosy.
That's true. Beggars can't be choosy. And the Bulls have been openly shopping both of these players for a long time. You would think somebody who's given the league 27 a game would be gone.
Right.
But they really have to just take whatever they can get right at this point. All right. As I said, Zach LaVine and the Bulls, they've started the season in opening week. They've 1-2 to start the season.
1-2. Yeah, they lost to New Orleans opening night. They beat Milwaukee. They lost to OKC.
Beat Milwaukee. Okay.
Yeah. Milwaukee, another team in the Central Division who's coached by Doc Rivers. I think we can stop right there. We understand why Milwaukee lost that game.
That's crazy.
I mean,
I'll let you explain it. What's the story behind that win?
listen, Milwaukee is layered, right? There's a lot of issues up there in Milwaukee. But from the Bulls' perspective, they played well offensively. They shot the ball well. Kobe had a night. He was hooping for real. Zach had a night as well. Everything really clicked for the Bulls. All of their main three guys, their main three scorers, Kobe, Zach, and Vooch, all scored well, all played well, all really stuffed the stat sheet all the way around. That really falls at the feet of Doc and really falls at the feet of Milwaukee because their defense in that game was terrible. The Bulls, as it stands right now, the Bulls are middle of the pack in terms of their offensive numbers, right? They're 18th or 19th or 20th in terms of points per game. In terms of 3-point percentage, the Bulls right now are about 18th, 19th, or 20th. Like all of their offensive statistics, their points per game as a team, they're all in the middle of the pack. There's nothing to write home about them. Their best offensive output on the season right now, it was against Milwaukee because Milwaukee's defense is just, I mean, how to describe it is, I could describe it as just bad. I could describe it as lethargic, as if they didn't care to try. All of those things would be appropriate. And that's a Doc Rivers issue for sure. That's a Milwaukee issue for sure. Giannis is already calling him out. They only played 4 games. Like, your main star is already pissed off. I mean, he separate topic, but he might be angling his way up out of there because of everything that's going on with their lack of defense and lack of focus as a unit. But all of that contributed to the Bulls having their best offensive output and performance on the season. They didn't play that well against New Orleans. They definitely didn't play that well against Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City walked in here, smacked the Bulls around like a stepchild, and, posed with Josh Giddey after the game and said, "We out."
Yeah, they did.
Made it look real easy. So Milwaukee has some issues to get sorted out. I doubt they will, but this isn't the Milwaukee Bucks podcast at the moment, so they can talk about what they talk about over there. But yeah, from the Bulls' perspective, they played well that game for sure, and you could see all of the good things and all the potential talent that the Bulls have because of that, because Milwaukee accentuated everything that the Bulls can do well. Against better teams with better defensive efficiency, that won't happen though.
Detroit Pistons, you all started the season with a record of what?
0-3.
0-3, right on schedule. What's the story behind this week for the Detroit Pistons?
We played 3 teams that were in the playoffs last year: the Pacers, Cavs, and Celtics. 2 of which of those games that we were in, and we had pretty viable chances to actually win the ball game, but a combination of mental errors by our young players. Ron Holland, we had 2 separate technical fouls for having 6 guys on the court. That's something you'll probably never see again. One was on a buzzer beater by Cade Cunningham, where Ron Holland ran onto the court a little early, and the refs kind of caught him on the court as he tried to run back. So that was pretty frustrating. And then on a substitution where he was supposed to be leaving the game, and he was walking towards the bench because the bench was on the same side as the offensive side of the court. So when he was supposed to be sitting on the bench, he was in the corner calling for the ball because I guess he didn't know that he was being subbed out. So two mental errors from a guy that's 19 years old. He's our lottery pick this year. And that just kind of swayed the momentum pretty bad in that game against the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton had a horrible game, but he did hit a big 3 down the stretch. But it came down to us not being able to stop TJ McConnell, the little point guard. Mathurin had a good second half, and Siakam was pretty tough too. So that was the Pacers game. The Cavaliers one, we were kind of I don't think we were ever really in that game. We were playing from behind for most of it. I think Dean Wade was one of the leading scorers on that team in that game. Yeah, that was a pretty balanced effort. Donovan Mitchell had an okay game. Garland had an okay game, but that was more of a balanced effort. And then the Celtics game, that was another one. When we were up in the fourth quarter, we made a nice little comeback. But the biggest thing for us right now is we're not taking care of the ball. You know, Cade. That's been the one thing that has plagued Cade the last few years is taking care of the ball and turning it over. Tobias Harris has done us a disservice thus far. We paid him a whole lot of money. He's averaging 10 points a game. You know, pretty much showing why showing why the Sixers were, you know, we're not worried about letting him leave. Yeah, he's got 10 points a game, 33% from the field. But yeah, so we really need our third option because Jaden Ivey's doing pretty well, Cade's doing pretty well, but we're looking for a nice third option to contribute right now because we're without our best perimeter defender in Asar Thompson, and I think we're missing his presence out there. You know, because a lot of those we need that guy that can guard the best guy in the court, whether it's Halliburton or whether it's Levine later on or Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. We don't have that one guy that can guard their best player. We did a good job of going to getting some spacing. We got Fontecchio, Tim Hardaway, Malik Beasley, guys like that. But those aren't guys that are going to that aren't really going to check up. So yeah, right now we're having to outshoot teams. So if our threes aren't falling, we're in a bad way.
Ooh, that sounds like a recipe of despair. All right. So the 1-win Bulls coming up this week. You have who's on your schedule?
Coming up is right now they're getting smacked around by Memphis. So that's the first game on the schedule. Orlando is after that.
What's the score?
44-24. Yeah. Memphis is stunting on the Bulls right now. To be expected. Again, they're not the Bulls against upper echelon teams. Even though Memphis, you could argue, is not upper echelon, with Ja they function at a different level. So the potential is there. But yeah, Orlando, and then after that is Brooklyn. So I could potentially see one win in that, which would be Brooklyn. Again, they already getting smacked right now. Paolo in Orlando is hooping, so credit to him. He's looking like a underrated number one pick because he doesn't get talked about down there like he really should be. He's playing good basketball. And then like I said, Brooklyn. So I could see the Bulls going to Brooklyn and winning that game, producing another 1-2 record for this week. So you'd be looking at a 2-4 ball club at this same time next week. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of par for the course. The Bulls will have their stretches where they look like the worst team on the planet at times. Again, especially against good opponents. Then they'll have one of those little hot stretches where they'll win 6 in a row, and media will start talking like, "Oh, the Bulls are playing well," and fans will start talking like, "Oh, the Bulls are playing well," and then after that little mini hot streak, they'll go right back to looking like trash again. So, and it'll be peaks and valleys like that through the entirety of the season. So, this season stretch coming up this week will be a microcosm of what their season will be the entire year.
The Bulls losing doesn't necessarily bother Bulls fans, though, right? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bulls losing and Zach LaVine and Vucci Mang and Kobe White to another extent playing well is exactly the win that you all, quote unquote, win that you all are looking for.
No, that's facts. I mean, the formula that I want to see, especially, is precisely that. right? I want to see Kobe play with, especially Kobe White. Honestly, he's the youngest guy. He's the guy who has not the most upside, if you will, but because of his youth and because of his talent that we saw sort of blossom last season, because he had a great year last year for him, he really improved. He's the guy that you look at and say, okay, you keep doing what you're doing. But you look at Zach, especially Zach, because he did miss a lot of time last year. He needs to rehabilitate his image and try to rehabilitate some standing around the league, because we want his profile to get raised back up to a point where he becomes tradable. He wasn't tradable last year. He wasn't tradable during the offseason. He wasn't tradable to the beginning of this season to this point, because the Bulls have been trying to shop him, like you mentioned, for quite some time with no success. Like, so, and it's the same thing with Vooch. So ideally, I want all of those players to play well. I want Zach to play great. I want Vooch to play great. I want their profiles to be risen to the point where some team picks up the phone and says, okay, yes, we'll take them off your hands for you. Kobe White can stay for the time being. I'm cool with that. And losing games throughout that entire process is ideal, because sneak peek down the road, the Bulls don't necessarily own their own draft pick this year. So if they fall outside of protections, that pick is going to San Antonio and will be popped yet again. So lose as much as possible, lose some more, keep losing, unfortunately.
What if San Antonio tank again and get the number 1 pick again with the Bulls pick?
Man, listen, that I hope I'm not living in that part of the multiverse where that happens, because I don't want to see that occur, quite frankly.
Oof, you will be begging for a retcon. Foster,
Man,
What's up?
What's on the Detroit Pistons schedule this coming week?
So we are also losing right now to the Miami Heat by 11 points. But outside of that, we have the 76ers, the New York Knicks, and then on Sunday we have the Brooklyn Nets as well. So that may be the winnable one for us as well.
You don't think you all can get 2 out of this week? Because I heard you say Nets and I heard you say Philly Sixers.
Embiid's playing right now, right? I think I saw him warming up. So
he is?
I think thought he was going to play, yeah.
Shocking to me. I didn't know he was playing.
I think they said the first week he was going to have off.
Well, you know,
Tyrese Maxey by himself can probably beat us, unfortunately. But obviously, Paul George is hurt right now. I haven't seen too much Philly yet, but they still got Oubre and I don't know a lot of guys. Gordon, Kenyon Martin Jr.
Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon Jr. He's washed. He's good for a couple of long shots, and that's it. He's just coming to collect the check. Tyrese Maxey, he is a top 20 player. Yes, you are correct there. I don't think Detroit has a top 20 player, but if Embiid is playing, then yeah, you can go ahead and strike that chance of a win. I agree. Yeah. So you both are saying this week is a potential 1 win week, with that 1 win circling the Brooklyn Nets. Dang, man, New York taking all the L's right now, man. The Yankees, Brooklyn, the Nets got cooked on opening night. Wow. Sucks to be the Big Apple.
Freddie Freeman is spazzing right now.
Yes. Oof. Those Yankees, they don't know what they got. They got into the wrong fight. A longer form question. This will be the last one before we wrap up. Is there any All-Stars on your roster?
No.
Not even Kobe. No. After you had that, after Kobe had that blowout year last year, you don't think he can make another step and possibly get into the All-Star game?
Well, it's nothing against Kobe, but I'm looking at the guards that are ahead of him in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's tough. Like, you got Brunson ahead of him, you got Maxey ahead of him. Like, there's some guards out there. Obviously, Halliburton, Like, we can go down the list of some of the guards that are just in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, I mean, Halliburton is still better than Kobe. Like, no disrespect.
I think
Not for long.
Cade's better than Kobe.
Okay, well then there you go. I mean, that I don't necessarily agree. I think it might be a push, but
Cade's
mean,
pretty good. He's just plays on a really bad team.
I mean, Kobe plays on a bad team, just not as bad as I would like.
Not even close to as bad.
But I think there's a lot of players ahead of Kobe who are gonna get that look in the East that I think is gonna just make it difficult for him. Now, I mean, we could have injury, we could have, you know, trade, we could have any number of things that could happen by the time we get to All-Star. And you know, Kobe could potentially snap, but Zach can limit Kobe's potential, which is part of the reason you kind of want Zach to be shipped on out. There is a level of coexistence that's there for the time being right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that can continue, because Zach at times can be a bit of a ball hog. He can be a guy who hunts for his own shot, especially when he starts feeling himself. He'll start looking for it, and he'll start chasing after it. And Kobe, as a guy who plays the best with the ball in his hands, he kind of needs that, and that becomes more difficult when Zach is really hunting for his. So I don't see it. There's no top 20 players on the Bulls. So yes, it'll be tough from that standpoint for him to be an all-star.
I lied. I said that would be the last question, but you made me spend the block on something there, Foster. You brought his name up in a trade, you know, idea with my man JJ3 here. Jaden Ivey. This is his second season, right?
Third.
Or is his third season?
Yeah.
Is this the season he makes his leap?
It's do or die this year for sure. Yeah, it's do or die. The first year he played pretty much by himself. Cade missed most of the year. Last year he played with Cade a lot, and he had he fell back. He had he played worse in the second
regression.
Year. Yeah, regress. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, this is definitely the year they've already paid Cade all that money. He's got the max deal. So the big question going into this year was whether they can coexist and play together. They made the decision that Cade is the guy. So if Ivy doesn't work out, he's going to be the one to go. I like his ceiling as far as his athletic ability. He's got one of the fastest, the quickest first steps in the entire league. And yeah, if he can start knocking down some open shots, then he can really be something. But he very well may be just boosting his trade stock for him to be shipped out for another like more proven star at this point. But it's time to start winning. I don't think that building any more through the draft is going to help us get anywhere. So this is the year one way or another where we decide whether or not he's going to be a part of our future alongside Cade.
It makes you wonder, because that's why that's still the question. And when that was the number one question when they drafted him, like, wow, can Jaden Ivey, a point guard in college, play with a similar type of point guard, a bigger combo type guard like Cade Cunningham? So that type of thought process when you're building a team, it's mind scratching to guys who who bloviate like us and just regular fans. Final question. Whose team is ran worse? Is the Chicago Bulls under the Reinsdorf hierarchy, or is it the Detroit Pistons?
Man, that's a question. Well, the Bulls aren't ran as terribly as the White Sox, so we have that going in our favor. Slightly, I'm slightly sure about that. The Bulls the Bulls didn't just set a record for worst losses in the history of their sport like the White Sox did. Even though they both have the same ownership. I will say that, man, I'm gonna go ahead and say that we'll take that crown off your hands. I'll graciously accept it for you as a favor.
Thank you.
Um,
Gotta get something.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take this one from you, just to cut you some slack. So yeah, the Bulls are ran worse simply because the Bulls are, again, they're in the middle all the time. They're just constantly stuck in the middle. They can't choose a direction. Even when management says, "Hey, we should make this trade. We should go in this way. We should trade at Alex Caruso during the season so we can get back multiple draft picks that can help us going forward." Then ownership turns around and shoots that down and says, "No, keep Alex Caruso. Help us make the push towards the play-in so we can have an extra game or two at the end of the year and collect some more butts and seats at the United Center." Yeah, that's that. I'm gonna take that crown from you on behalf of the Chicago Bulls.
Hey man, you never know what can happen. Lonzo Ball is back. Foster, one of the brightest shining star for the post game podcast. Where is that found again?
On YouTube, it's found at Bleachers to Speakers, and on all audio aggregators at that same name, Post Game Podcast. When you see the red, white, and blue logo with the little paint logo, the little key and paint logo, that is ours.
What's up?
Post Game.
That's Bleachers to Speakers everywhere you get your audio: Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else. JJ3, you usually head up the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan channel's White Sox shows, but for the sake of this talk, where could they find you and any other Chicago-based sports discussion?
Well, I mean, you'll typically find me on the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan network of shows on YouTube, on Spotify, anywhere you can find those platforms and networks. You may find me there as well, talking about the frustration of Chicago's fans dealing with the White Sox, dealing with the Bulls. We don't speak about that team that plays baseball on the north side of the city, though. We don't worry about them. And you will also see me watching. No, we don't worry about them. They got issues to work through too up there. But you'll also see me pontificating at times about the blunders of the Chicago Bears as well. Watching what happens on the Bear Claw, because man, the epic rants that we need from the Bear Claw is going to be all-time exceptional. So I'm looking forward to those. I'm gonna have that on repeat.
Yeah. The Bears rants that JJ3 is speaking about, the next Chicago Bears review episode will be dropping tomorrow morning at that same YouTube location and at all those podcast aggregators. Fellas, this is a great episode number 1. Next week, we hope to have our Cleveland Cavaliers representative and our Indiana Pacers rep, so we can fill this out a little bit more, get a little bit more diverse opinions and trajectories for our basketball teams. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, man. Y'all be blessed.
Thanks for listening to this latest edition from the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan channel. Whether you listen to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a drop. And all my homies from Chicago, we say 3 things: bear down, go Cubs go, and sell the team, Jerry.